Buddhu Saranai. Let me welcome our Venerable Bhikkhus, Bhikkhunis, committee members, special invitees and Dhamma friends to the International Dhamma program on Vap Full Moon Poya Day for the Dhamma talk on the topic Craving is the Cause of Suffering. The Dhamma talk will be delivered by the Most Venerable Ajahn Amaro, the abbot of Amaravati Buddhist Monastery in UK. Vap Full Moon Poya Day marks the end of the 3-month retreat by Buddhist monks known as the Vas or rainy season and the commencement of the Katina celebration, also called the Katina Chivara Mase, the month of robes. This period continues till the end of next Poya in November. This is considered as one of the most meritorious deeds in Buddhism. On this very holy day, I wish to thank and pay much merit to Most Venerable Ajahn Amaro, who will deliver the Dhamma talk on the topic, Craving is the Cause of Suffering. I would briefly, introduce Venerable Ajahn Amaro because I think it's my duty to do that. As I mentioned earlier, Ajahn Amaro is the abbot of the Amaravati Buddhist Monastery in Christchurch, UK. Born in England in 1956, Venerable Amaro Bhikkhu received a BSc in Psychology and Physiology from the University of London. Spiritual searching led him to Thailand, where he went to Wat Po Nanachat, a forest tradition monastery established for Western disciples of Thai meditation master Ajahn Chah, who ordained him as a bhikkhu in 1979. Soon afterwards, he returned to England and joined Ajahn Sumedho at the newly established Teachers Monastery. He resided for many years at Amaravati Buddhist Monastery, making trips to California every year during the 1990s. In June 1996, he established Abhayagiri Monastery in Redwood Valley, California, where he was co-abbot with Ajahn Prasanno until 2010. He then returned to Amaravati to become abbot of this large monastic community. Ajahn Amaro has written a number of books, including an account of an 830-mile trek from Chithurst to Hanam Vihara called Tiudong, The Long Road North, republished in the expanded book Silent Rain. His other publications include Small Board, Great Mountain in 2003, Rain on the Nile in 2009, and The Island, an anthology of the Buddha's teachings on Nibbana in 2009, co-written with Ajahn Pasanno, a guide to meditation called Finding the Missing Piece, and other works dealing with various aspects of Buddhism. In December 2015, along with Ajahn Pasanno, Ajahn Amaro was honored by the King of Thailand with the ecclesiastical title Chao Kun. Together with this honor, he was given the name Videsha Buddhi Guna. In July 2019 again, with Ajahn Pasanno, he was honored with the title Chao Kun Raja and received the name Raja Buddhivara Guna. So I think we are very, very fortunate to have Most Venerable Ajahn Amaro to deliver the Dhamma talk. Today's program, Dhamma program conducted by the Most Venerable Ajahn Amaro, the Pirikara will be offered by Dr. Mrs. Dharmini and Amara Makalanda and family who are resident in the UK to offer merit to their departed parents, and also they stated that may all sentient beings be at peace and realize Nibbana. So may I now invite the Most Venerable Ajahn Amaro to deliver Pansil and commence the Dhamma talk. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Firstly, thank you very much for that introduction, Professor Lakshman. I can only see the panelists on my screen. I can't see the participants.
Yeah, participants, actually on this system, participants are not seen, but they can hear everything, Most Venerable.
Okay, so I just see you.
We and the others are there. If they can
Panelists.
open, if you like to open your screens, then it will be good. I think Deepal has already opened. Uday is there. If the others can also open, I think Don is there. Right. Senaka.
I can see the other panelists, but
Yeah.
not the
Yeah,
participants. So
yeah, participants.
just wanted to check that was as you
Yeah.
had planned.
Actually, because of the large numbers, we are unable to accommodate them on the screen. So we have to get them separately. We have there were about 350 participants, but I think about 200 would be over 200 would be participating.
Okay. So, do any of you do the formal request for the opportunity to determine the refuges and precepts, or do I should we leave that?
I will give the, and then after that, Venerable can give it. Namo
Very good.
tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa sadhu.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Sadhu, sadhu.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Yampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Yampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Yampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Yampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Yampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Yampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sarana gamanang nititang.
Ambante
Panatipata Verapmani Sikhaparang Samadhiyami.
panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinadana Verapmani Sikhaparang Samadhiyami.
Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kame Sumichachara Verapmani Sikhaparang Samadhiyami.
Kamesu veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Musawada Verapmani Sikhaparang Samadhiyami.
Savadana sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Sura Meraya Majappamadatana Verapmani Sikhaparang Samadhiyami. Imani Pancha Sikhapadani Silena Sugatinyanti Silena Poga Sampada Silena Nibutinyanti Tasama Silang Visotaye.
Ambante sadhu sadhu.
So I'm very happy to be able to offer some Dhamma reflections on this this day. It's actually in our calendar, the full moon day is tomorrow rather than today. So these things vary from one Buddhist country, one Buddhist lineage to another. So according to our calendar, the Pavarana day at the end of the Vasa comes tomorrow. So that's we're in the last day of the Vasa here at Amaravati Monastery in England. But it is an auspicious time, and that we've been, say, residing here about 24 monks, 11 nuns, and various novices and anagarikas, about 40 monastics living here together at Amaravati Monastery in England during this Vasa period. So the theme for this the Dhamma reflection this afternoon is craving is the cause of suffering, ? And I feel this is a central issue for us, because even though as Buddhists, people even very, newly encountering Buddhism, you come across the teaching on the Four Noble Truths, and it's spelled out there quite clearly in the second noble truth, that craving is the cause of suffering. And so it's a curious thing when right there in a very central teaching, explained very early on and in such simple terms, yet having that knowledge or that information from the great enlightened master, the Lord Buddha, still we continue to create suffering in our lives, or suffering doesn't come to an end for us. So when we look at our lives, then for most of us, then when we're experiencing dissatisfaction as small children or as adults or as professional people, we habitually blame others. I'm unhappy because of you. My parents, my children, my sisters, my brothers, the people I work with, the people in the government. You're not doing what I want you to do, and I'm unhappy, therefore it's your fault. And this is a very natural reactive attitude that we have as human beings. I would say it's very childish, and yet even when we're grown adults and with lots of letters after our names, we can still function in exactly the same way. I'm unhappy because of you, because you're running the department badly. You're not performing correctly in the business. You're running the government improperly. You're causing difficulties in the family. I'm having problems because of you. So that the initial reaction to dukkha, to suffering, to dissatisfaction, is for most people in most situations is to blame somebody else. So that's the kind, I would say, is the initial reaction. Then if we encounter the Buddha's teaching, or we start to reflect upon our life, we look a little bit more deeply, then we realize, well, it's not just the government or my family or the work situation or the economy or my health issues or the people that I'm working with. My own mind has got has some effect on this. My attitude is part of this feeling of difficulty or struggle or dukkha, dissatisfaction. And so we, rather than just blaming the objective world, we start to look within, and then taking that teaching of the Buddha of the second noble truth, tanha, craving, in its various forms, is the cause of dukkha. And then, as the Buddha defines it, craving for sense pleasure, craving to be, craving to not be. So kama tanha, bhava tanha, vibhava tanha, these three particular kinds of craving that the Buddha outlines. And then in the very first teaching that he gave on the Four Noble Truths in the middle way, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, he spells that out, defines that, ever seeking fresh delight, now here, now there, is the tatra tatra abhinandini sayadidam gamatanna bhavatanna vibhavatanna, ever seeking fresh delight, now here, now there. So we have that spelled out right in the very first teaching, and in quite simple, tangible terms. But yet, it's okay. That's where the dukkha comes from. That's where the suffering comes from. I'm ready to take responsibility for that. But yet, even though we have the information, we know that the words of the Buddha, we've received that message. Still, we find that we can't change our habits, or still we continue to create more dukkha, more difficulty, more dissatisfaction, dis-ease within our own lives. So that's in a way the conundrum, but I think it's amplified because of the way that we mistake information or intellectual knowledge for profound wisdom. And so, and just to quote T.S. Eliot in one of his poems, he said, "Where is the wisdom that is lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge that is lost in information?" So this is the information age, as they say. And so there's a lot of information available. And so we get deluded by the fact, because we've got some conceptual understanding, some conceptual knowledge, we've got the information that somehow in and of itself changes our hearts, changes our attitudes. But it really isn't enough in that respect. And to quote another poem from T.S. Eliot, the Hollow Men, he said, "Between the idea and the reality, there falls the shadow." The idea is one thing, the idea of letting go of craving, or craving is the cause of suffering, that's the idea. But the reality of not being able to stop those habits of craving, that's where the shadow falls. Between the idea and the reality, there falls the shadow. So he's a very insightful fellow, T.S. Eliot. I think he had some encounters with Buddhist teachings as well as Christian teachings and Western philosophy. But I feel this puts it into very clear and accurate statement on the issue. So I think for us, particularly those of us who have a university education, our minds work very easily in the conceptual realms, it's even more important to make that distinction between having information, having a conceptual understanding, and the actual change of heart, the change of attitude that makes the difference, that removes that shadow, that really enables the heart to be freed of dukkha, to be freed of suffering. So in the Pali expression of these different levels, we talk about pariyati, patipati, and pativeda. So pariyati means to study and to have the concept. Patipati means to practice, to put that knowledge into that information into action, to be working with it. And then pativeda is the realization. That's the result of having applied that practice in an effective way. So again, in the Buddha's very first teaching, he uses that same kind of format when he's spelling out each of the Four Noble Truths. There is the statement, the pariyati, there is dukkha, idang dukkang, idang dukkha samudaya. This is dukkha, this is the origin of dukkha, this is the cessation of dukkha, this is the way leading to the cessation of dukkha. That's the pariyati. That's, okay, this is the data. There is dukkha, there's the origin, there's the cessation, and this is the way leading to the cessation. So that's the pariyati, is that first statement. And then for each one of the four truths, he then gives you a method to work with it. So for the first noble truth, dukkha, the truth of dissatisfaction, parinyeyanti, that's the patipati, that's the practice to be carried out. The way of working with that experience of dukkha is, it is to be apprehended, is to be studied, to be understood. So this means not to be complaining about dukkha, not to be suppressing it, not to be blaming others for it, not to be wallowing in it, but to be curious, to say, oh, what is this? How does this work? Why is my heart not filled with satisfaction? If there is the Dhamma, if the Dhamma is the fundamental reality, if that's the basis of all truth, that's the Dhamma is the basis of reality, why am I not happy all of the time? Why is that? So parinyeyanti is the dukkha, that dissatisfaction is to be explored, to be studied, to be received. And then parinyatanti is that's the realization. It has been understood, it has been apprehended, it has been fully fully, say, explored, and its reality has been fully actualized and known. And for the second noble truth, the task involved with that truth, there is the pariyati, the study. There is the cause of dukkha samudaya, and then pahatabanti, it is to be let go of. That's the instruction or the practice involved with that second noble truth. Pahatabanti, pahanati is to let go, to relinquish, to release. So that's the way to work with the experience of craving, of tanha, and then the result or the realization is pahinanti. It has been let go of. That cause has been abandoned, has been relinquished. That's the pativeta. For the third noble truth, just to complete the whole set, so it is the third noble truth, idang dukkha nirodho. This is the cessation, the ending of dukkha, the complete absence of dissatisfaction. Satchikata bhanti, it is to be realized, it is to be noticed. Satya is truth. The English word realize is very accurate translation there. Satchikata bhanti. When dukkha comes to an end, it's to be noticed. Often when some painful experience is finished, we feel a moment of relief, like, oh, thank goodness that's over. A noise in the streets, or an illness, or a toothache, or a difficult conversation, oh, thank goodness that's over. But then that feeling of relief only is noticed in contrast to the presence of the dukkha. Satchikata bhanti means not just noticing that something painful has come to an end, but noticing the absence of dukkha, to be fully aware of the fact there is no dukkha. So it's sustaining that awareness of an absence of dukkha, not just in contrast to the painful experience, but in an ongoing way. And so those of you who are familiar with Ajahn Sumedho's teachings will know he often spends a lot of time emphasizing that the third noble truth and the practice of realization, because after the cause of dukkha has been let go of and dukkha has come to an end, what easily happens is we think, oh, thank goodness that's over, and then we doze off. We fall asleep, we get distracted, we become complacent. So dukkha nirodha, satchikata bhanti, it is to be realized, it's like sustaining that brightness of attention, that keenness of attention when there is no dukkha. So not just let the absence of dukkha make the mind complacent and lazy and just switch off and be lost in comfort. And then, so the satchikatanti means there has been realized, that the ending of dukkha, the absence of dukkha has been fully realized. Then the fourth noble truth, bhaveta bhanti, it is to be cultivated. The way leading to the ending of dukkha, it is to be developed, to be cultivated, and then bhavitanti, it has been cultivated, it has been developed. So I think it's very helpful for us to have this model, this kind of the three stages that we are employing actively as a map for our spiritual practice, so that we're not just accumulating information, we're not just gathering ideas, we're not even just gathering practices or performing practices, but having applied the practice, then we are looking at the results of that. Saying, does it work? I've been practicing mindfulness of breathing. I've been practicing insight meditation. I've been doing a walking meditation. I've been, say, reciting the Buddha guna, Dhamma guna, Sangha guna for 30, 40, 50 years. What's the result? What's it led to? There's been the patipati, the practice, but has it led to pativeta? Has it led to realization? What's the effect? What's the result of those practices? So in terms of really taking to heart that craving is the cause of suffering, and helping that understanding to bear fruit in terms of genuinely letting go and experiencing a freedom from dukkha, then there needs to be all of these three levels: pariyati, patipati, pativeta. But in the Four Noble Truths, the actual time sequence, in a way, goes 2, 1, 4, 3. So cause of suffering, suffering, the way leading to the end of suffering, the end of suffering. So that they're arranged in a slightly illogical order in terms of a time sequence, because if we rearrange the pattern a little bit, then we can see the cause of dukkha is there first of all. Then, because of that, dukkha arises. Then we apply the Eightfold Path, and that leads to the end of dukkha. So that again, this is just another way of looking at it. We can see that we start off with truth number 2, the cause of dukkha, and at the end we arrive at the ending of dukkha. So the Four Noble Truths, in their essence, they're helping us to get from truth number 2 to truth number 3. That's the kind of the span that we're aiming at. And when the Buddha wanted to explain this in more detail, to talk about the fine anatomy of how that transition is made, how we really bring about that change of heart, then the teachings on dependent origination, paticca samuppada, were the means where he spelled out the fine detail of how to get from truth number 2 to truth number 3, from the origin of dukkha to the cessation of dukkha. So that if we really want to deepen our understanding of the Four Noble Truths and bring about the ending of dukkha, then getting familiar with the process of dependent origination and dependent cessation, paticca samuppada and paticca nirodha, that is an essential part of our Dhamma practice, the application of the Dhamma teachings. And the Buddha once made the statement: one who understands dependent origination understands the Dhamma. One who understands the Dhamma understands dependent origination. They're of a piece. So that when we look at this, and there are in the sutta teachings, there are about 9 or more different formats where the Buddha speaks about dependent origination. The elements, with slightly greater number, slightly smaller number. Sometimes things are, say, expanded or in certain ways. So that you don't have a single formula for the whole dependent origination pattern. There have a variety of ways that the Lord Buddha spoke about it. But in general, the most common format is where you have 12 linked qualities, starting off with avijja, ignorance at the beginning, and then through this causal chain or causal processes leading to the experience of dukkha at the end of the 12th link of the chain. So, and I'm assuming that most people who are joining in with this talk are somewhat familiar with the dependent origination teachings. So I feel, in terms of developing this theme, or looking at why, even though we might intellectually know craving is the cause of suffering, why it doesn't bring about the ending of dukkha in our own hearts, I think the studying and getting a feel for how that process of dependent origination and dependent cessation works as a moment-to-moment experience, how we see that pattern operating in our lives, that's extraordinarily helpful, beneficial. It's a direct support for the bringing about the ending of dukkha in our lives and in the world around us. So there's 2 main ways that dependent origination is spoken of. So in the suttas, very very helpfully, one of the great Buddhist philosophers and scholars in Thailand did an analysis of the commentaries and the sutta teachings, and he found that these 2 different expressions of dependent origination, one that you can say is describing a process over a number of lifetimes, you can call that the many lifetimes, say, expression. In the suttas, that is about 1/3 of the expressions of dependent origination relate to many lifetimes, and 2/3 relate to the other format, which is what you can call the momentary expression, that how dukkha arises, in this moment, as a momentary present experience in this lifetime. So in the suttas, 2/3 of the teachings refer to the momentary experience, and 1/3 refer to the many lifetimes. In the commentaries, it's flipped around. So in the commentarial material, then you have 2/3 refer to the many lifetimes, and 1/3 refers to the momentary experience of dependent origination. The particular lineage that I come from, I've trained in, the forest tradition in Thailand, teachers like Ajahn Chah, Ajahn Buddhadasa, Ajahn Sumedho, that tended to focus very much on the momentary experience of dependent origination as the most practical and significant aspect of that teaching, how the mind creates dukkha in this present moment. And as Ajahn Chah once put it, he said that if you look at it, the process happens so quickly. It's like trying to track all of the processes of dependent origination. It's like falling out of a tree and trying to count the branches on the way down. It happens so fast. You can't catch every detail, but you know, thud, ow, it hurts when you hit the ground. That's what you know for sure. And I feel this is a very, very helpful way of understanding how, beginning with avijja, when the mind is not seeing things clearly, then that's how dukkha gets created in this moment, just within this second. You know, that it's an extremely rapid process. And there's, again, you could spend a whole week rather than just an hour-long Dhamma talk on this, but or more than a week. Many profound theses have been written, books have been written about this. But roughly speaking, I would say you can divide the process of dependent origination as a momentary experience into 4 sections. So first of all, it's the setting up of the subject-object duality, me here, the world out there, or me here experiencing my thoughts internally. So the subject-object duality. So because of ignorance, avijja paccaya sankhara, sankhara paccaya vijnana, vijnanam paccaya namarupa. So that this is describing the arising, when there's ignorance, there seems to be an experiencer here and a world there, or a me looking at my mind, or experiencing my mind, my memories, my emotions. Whether it's a world inside or a world outside, it's like there's a subject and an object that seems to be a fixed duality. That's sort of stage 1. Stage 2 then is the process of perception and feeling. So the mind latches onto a particular sense perception. Like I can look at the little green light at the top of my computer where I know the camera is. So that little green spot, that's the I can say that's a sense perception, sanya. So that then that process of the 6 senses, the mind latching onto a particular sensory experience, and then the Vedana, the feeling that arises from that. So that there being a subject, there being an object, there's a me here looking at that green light, that's a perception and feeling is set up. Then the 3rd stage of the process is the mind getting lost in that feeling. Vedana conditions tanha. Tanha upadana bhava is the next section. So that the craving, clinging, and becoming, that's the outflowing tendency of the mind. Say that the little green spot at the top of my computer is not very exciting, it's not very irritating, it is very neutral. So the neutral feeling. So then the mind might then say, well, that's not very interesting, it's boring, I don't want to bother with that. If it's something that's sensually stimulating, then the mind is drawn towards it and it wants to feed on that. Or if it's irritating or off-putting, then it's, oh, I don't want to have that. I want to get rid of it. That's irritating. It's upsetting. That's annoying. So that 3rd part is the mind getting lost. It's crossed over that bridge between Vedana and Tanha, and then that a sense of absorption into the mind, trying to get hold of a thing that it's attracted to get rid of or wipe out a thing that it doesn't like, or it just has an opinion about the sensory experience, and so the mind is absorbed into that, or is absorbing into that. And then the last part of the process is jati, jara, marana, soka, parideva, dukkha, domana, upayasa. Birth, jati is like psychological birth. You're born into that. I've got to do something about that. I'm going to get rid of it, or like, well, that's really great. How can I get more of it? And the mind has committed itself to chasing after a particular object. You've clicked on that link. You've paid the money to buy that car. You've signed the contract. You've bought the ticket. It's an irreversible commitment. You've yelled at somebody that you really wanted to let them have it. That's the point of no return. Jati, psychological birth. There's no turning back. And then, having made that commitment, having spent that money, or having yelled at that person, or having signed that contract, then we then live with the results of that, which, according to this pattern, inevitably, in some way, shape, or form, will lead to sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. Soka, parideva, dukkha, domanassa, upayasa. So that's I would say, again, this is not, I wouldn't say this is the only way to regard it, but I feel it breaks down those 12 links into 4 fairly easy chunks, setting up the subject-object duality, the process of perception and feeling, the mind getting lost in its outflows, and then the result of being caught in those outflows, psychological birth and psychological death. That's the paticca samuppada, the arising of dukkha, how when there is a lack of awareness, a lack of mindfulness, how the mind creates dukkha in this moment. So the Buddha's teaching outlines quite a number of ways that cycle can be broken. The heart can free itself from that process. And one of the most simple and direct ways that he talks about it in the Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical discourse, is the Book of the Sixes. I think it's Sutta number 63, where the Buddha says that suffering ripens in 2 ways. If there's dukkha, if you've arrived at soka, parideva, dukkha, domanassa, upayasa, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair, it can ripen in 2 ways. One is in more dukkha, like, poor me, I'm disappointed. Where am I going to get the money to pay for this? Oh, I shouldn't have yelled. Or that person really hates me. Or I've made that promise. How can I keep it? So that feeling of dukkha, kind of alienation, incompleteness, a sense of agitation and a burden on the heart. Either we repeat the cycle and just find something that gives us some satisfaction, so we go and buy something else, or we get another cake to eat, another relationship, another meditation technique, something that we repeat the pattern based on the last time we felt satisfied. So usually what informs the continuation of the wheel of becoming is the impact of our addictions, where we were most satisfied, where we had that last hit of yes. So when the heart was really caught into that becoming process, the bhava, tanha upadana bhava, is the last time that we felt fully satisfied before jati, before birth. So if there's a continuing ignorance, then that dukkha ripens in more dukkha. We keep following the same impulses. We eat some more food. We form another relationship. We get another job. We buy another house. We buy another car. We find another teacher, etc., etc., etc. And the bhava chakra, the wheel of becoming, keeps on spinning. So the alternative is what the Buddha called search. Suffering ripens in 2 ways, either in further suffering or in search. And when he defines search, he says, it's the mind saying, there must be some way out of this. This can't be the only possibility. There has to be a way that the heart is free of this process. Now, how can I do this? If you want to give up smoking, there are people who don't smoke. You want to give up drinking, there are people who don't drink, who've never drunk. It must be possible. I know it's possible. Now, how do I do it? There are people for whom they're not obsessed by status. They're not caught up in endless conflicts. They don't bear grudges. Now, other people can do this, therefore I can too now. How do I do it? So that search then is, in a way, that's an embodiment of the quality of faith, of saddha, that trusting that the wisdom of the heart that knows there's got to be an alternative. So that essentially that's Saddha saying, this is just a habit of mind. It doesn't have to be followed. It's not the only possibility. There is a way beyond this. And so then in one particular teaching, it's known as transcendent dependent arising, is where the Buddha points out that dukkha leads to faith, that faith leads to pamoja, a sense of delight or self-respect, that leads to contentment, sukha, contentment leads to samadhi, samadhi leads to yatha bhutang jnana-dasanam, knowledge and vision of the way things are, that leads to letting go, to viraga, and to dispassion, detachment, and then that leads to the liberation of the heart. So it starts off with dukkha in that particular expression. That's in the Samyutta Nikaya in the Nidana Vagga, the connected discourses about causation. I think it's sutta number 23, I think. Not sure about that. I think it's sutta 23. But it's where that's the result of that search is then that that creates an exit point from the cycle. So starting off with that experience of dukkha. So that's one exit point from the bhava chakra, the cycle of becoming, the wheel of birth and death. The most common place, or certainly within the forest tradition, and also I would say why the Buddha names tanha, craving, as the cause of dukkha in the Four Noble Truths, rather than avijja, ignorance, is because the weakest link in that whole process of dependent origination is between feeling and craving, vedana and tanha. That's the weakest link. And so that, to me, that's why the Lord Buddha aimed at tanha as the cause. A more primal cause would be ignorance, but that's harder to spot. The easiest place to see and the weakest link in the whole chain is between feeling and craving. So a lot of meditation practice revolves around learning how not to be reactive towards feeling. If you have a feeling of pleasure, that you can like something, you can know this is delicious, this is beautiful, this is appealing. If there's mindfulness, then that feeling of liking doesn't have to turn into wanting. Just because you like something doesn't mean you have to have more of it. That sense of appreciation, of gratification, of asada, it doesn't need to turn into greed. It doesn't need to turn into lobha or the acquisitive habit. It can just be, oh, this is delicious, full stop. Similarly, something can be painful, physical pain, or being with a difficult social situation, being criticized, and we can have this feeling of this is really painful, this is physically painful, it's socially, emotionally painful. I don't have to hate this, I don't have to fear it, I don't have to resent it, I don't have to negotiate with it, I don't have to try and blot it out. I can know this is painful. Doesn't mean that you're completely passive or that you don't take action to treat an injury or an illness, but the mind is not creating negativity. It's not crossing that bridge between Vedana and Tanha, like, oh, this is awful, I've got to get rid of it, I hate this is terrible, I can't bear it, but rather, ow, full stop. So in terms of another exit point from that cycle, this is one of the key places developing mindfulness of feeling, and not just physical sensation, but also emotions. So when you're excited, when you're sad, when you have jealousy, when you feel grief. So it's pleasant and painful emotions as much as pleasant and painful physical sensations. The more that we can use mindfulness and full awareness to really know the realm of feeling and emotion and not get drawn into that, not to take those things personally, then there's a fantastically effective way of freeing the heart from creating more causes of suffering. That we realize this is extremely pleasant. This is exactly what I wanted. No need to write a story about it. No need to get drunk on it. No need to tell everyone about it. Just here it is. This is exactly what I wanted. Yes, This is the yes feeling. That's it. And no need to be afraid of it. No need to suppress that. No need to make a whole story out of it. So that I feel these are very, very helpful teachings for us, and that is also in the book of the tens, in the numerical discourses, there's a particularly significant teaching that where the Buddha spells out a different way of relating to perception and feeling. It's a kind of how that causal chain of experience works if there is vijja rather than avijja, if there's awareness rather than ignorance. And so this is in the Book of the Tens, the Numerical Discourses, Book of the Tens, Sutta number 58. And it starts off by the Buddha saying, everything is rooted in interest. Chandamula is the there's interest. The attention goes to that spot of green light, or the face of Professor Lakshman or Dipal or Seneca on the screen, or the names of Don Ratnayaka, Udaya Ganipola, and Dhru Ratnayaka up on my screen. We can be interested. Rooted in interest are all things, born of attention, so that then those perceptions, they gain substantiality. The interest, attention, arising from contact. So then the mind appreciates that sense contact. That sense contact then diverges into feeling. So Vedana Samosarana is the Pali. So rooted in interest are all things, born of attention are all things, arising from contact are all things, diverging into feelings, or it can also mean converging onto feelings. So if you take the image of a tree, that the chanda, interest, is the roots of the tree, and then where the trunk rises from the ground is attention. The trunk itself is contact, phassa, and then feeling is where the branches start spreading out. And so then the feeling, Vedana, is the same as you have in the dependent origination cycle. But then what the Buddha says in this particular teaching, then headed by concentration, dominated by mindfulness, surmounted by wisdom. So their feelings are held by concentration, samadhi, sati, and panya. So they're headed by concentration, dominated by mindfulness, surmounted by wisdom. So that then there are feelings of liking, disliking, happiness, grief, sadness, jealousy, fear, excitement, whatever it might be. But if there's samadhi, sati, and panya, then those feelings are just what they are. We don't have to suppress them. We don't have to be afraid of them. We don't have to wallow in them. They are just what they are. So then the result of those feelings is very, very different. When they're headed by concentration, dominated by mindfulness, and surmounted by wisdom, then they lead to vimutti, yielding deliverance as their essence are all things. They lead to vimutti. That's the fruit of that. Those feelings is vimutti, is liberation, and then merging in the deathless. Amatoganda is the Pali for that. Merging in the deathless are all things. Terminating in nibbana are all things. So that same perceptual process, the same process of perception and feeling, when it's informed by vijja, awareness, then it has a very different result. If you start off with vijja, the end result is nibbana. Start off with avijja, the end result is dukkha. That's the short version of the whole, these two contrasting approaches. So then I feel in terms of encouragement, in a way that's the third exit point from the cycle is establishing the heart in vijja, in awakened awareness. If we don't let avijja arise, then that whole causal chain that leads to dukkha is not initiated. That doesn't get started. You're not starting the engine. With vijja, and consistent and sustained quality of awakened awareness, then that whole subject-object duality, and then the tendency to absorb into feelings, and that leading to craving, and psychological rebirth and re-death, that doesn't happen. That is not brought into being. So in terms of our lives, and how to support the development of that kind of awakened awareness, that way of skillfully working with the realm of perception and feeling, moment by moment, day by day, then the Buddha outlined a number of qualities. And so I just, there's a final thing to share with you before we have the time for questions and discussion. What he called the 4 qualities supportive of stream entry. And my former co-abbot, Lumpur Prasanna, Ajahn Pasno, he used to often talk about these and include these in Dhamma talks very regularly. And I feel it's they are very, very helpful to bear in mind. So these 4 qualities supportive of stream entry, conducive to stream entry, which is the irreversible insight into Dhamma. If that insight has been actualized, then liberation is absolutely guaranteed. Number 1 on the list is Sappurisa Sangseva, drawing close to good people. So Sappurisa, Sat means true or good, Purisa means a person, Sangseva means to associate with or to come together with, draw close to. So just as you have in the beginning of the Mangala Sutta, Asevana Chabalanang Panditanang Jasevana, not to associate with fools, but to associate with the wise, this is the highest blessing. Verse 1, line 1. So who do you spend your time with? Do you draw close to good people? It makes a difference. Or similarly, when the Buddha said to Ananda that the associating with Kalyanamitta, spiritual friends, is not half the holy life, it's the whole of the holy life. So the first condition supportive of stream entry is, who are your friends? Who do you spend time with? Who do you choose to be with? And the more you can draw close to wholesome, good-hearted, well-balanced people, then that's going to set the odds in your favor. So that's Sappurisa Sangseva is the first one. Second one is Sadhamma Savana, listening to good teachings. If you draw close to good people, then it will encourage you to be spending your time reflecting on useful teachings and things that are going to make a positive benefit in your life, like Dhamma teachings, Dhamma practice, and so on and so forth. So that's the second of those elements, is Sadhamma Savana, listening to the true Dhamma. The third one is Yoniso Manasikara, wise reflection, using your intelligence to look at the way life works, to explore why you are excited, why you are afraid, why something is really gratifying to you, why something is really painful to you. How do you handle criticism? How do you handle praise? How do you handle success? How do you handle failure? How do you handle comfort? How do you handle discomfort, sickness and health, and so on? So Yoniso Manasikara is that the aspect of mind that recognizes the patterning of things, how nature works in our mind, in our life, in the world around us. So it's not just intelligence as in being clever, but it's applied intelligence or emotional intelligence, whereby we're using that ability of the mind to see how things fit together in a non-personal way, but in accordance with how nature operates. And then the fourth of those 4 qualities, qualities supportive of stream entry, is Dhammanu Dhamma Patipada, practicing Dhamma in accordance with Dhamma. So this is as usual, the last one on the list is the most subtle, as you find in many of the Buddha's teachings. So often what we do is we practice Dhamma in accordance with my preferences, in accordance with self-view and my desires, my fears, my opinions. So it's not Dhammanu Dhamma Patipada, it's Sakaya Ditti Patipada, that we might put a lot of effort in and we might be very determined, but if our practice of Dhamma is based on self-view rather than on Dhamma itself, then it's only going to lead to dukkha. If we start off with ignorance, you end up with dukkha. And so you start off with wisdom, with vicha, with awareness. Then Dhammanu Dhammapatipada is a lot to do with how to apply effort and how to make decisions free of self-view, free of conceit, so that it's mindfulness and wisdom that guides our choices, that guides our effort, rather than me trying to get something, me trying to get rid of something, me trying to become something, me trying to achieve something. So rather than casting out the practice of Dhamma in the framework of me and my practice, or me and my problems, me and my Dhamma project, my Dhamma life, that the effort to practice the Dhamma is free of self-view and free of conceit, and instead is informed by mindfulness and wisdom. And then that is very directly supportive of the qualities of stream entry. And then in that very way of working, we are no longer creating the causes of dukkha. We're not practicing Dhamma based on craving, based on the desire to become or the desire to get rid of, bhavatanha, vibhavatanha, but rather the practice of Dhamma is based on mindfulness and wisdom. So I see that the time has gone by. It's here in England, it's 2:26 in the afternoon, and so we've got just over half an hour for some questions and some discussion. I'm not sure how that'll work if we haven't got people on the screen.
Yeah, that should be all right. Most Honorable, thank you very much. I think it was a very good Dhamma talk on the craving, and of course the cause of suffering, and then of course ending up with the four qualities of stream entry. I think that will really maybe enable all our Dhamma friends to see as to how they can maybe get over the suffering, and also how they can meet the various challenges that come to them. We are having some questions. If you have any questions, please send it on Q&A. And may I now invite Deepal. I think Deepal was listening very patiently. Either maybe any comments or questions that you would like to ask Most Venerable Ajahn Amaro.
Yeah, Lakshman, thank you. Much merit to you, Bhante. It was very profound, and in fact, you covered so much ground in this 1 hour, which will get us a couple of weeks to really reflect and digest. Two interesting points that really touched me is not to cross the bridge between feeling and clinging. The easiest exit point, that was quite brilliant, the way you put it. And then finally you mentioned this very important point, the effort without self-view. So I would like to request you, if you could, please clarify a little bit more. What did you mean by this effort without self-view? Because sometimes we get this question, how can I make an effort without a person who is making an effort? So what is this effort without the self-view? So I think that's a very subtle point, because at one point you think I need to make an effort. How do you distinguish between the sluggishness and having effort?
Yeah, it's good. It's a very important question, and again, those of you who've read many of Ajahn Sumedho's Dhamma books or listened to his talks will have noticed how he talks in meditation instruction. He talks a lot about bhavatanha and vibhavatanha, because they're the kind of when talking about the cause of dukkha, kamatanha, sense pleasure, the desire for sense pleasure, that gets all of the press coverage. It's a kind of a big line. And then, down on sort of page 5, page 7, you get the desire to become, the desire to get rid of. They're kind of quietly in the background. But in terms of meditation, they are very potent and very insidious, because I want to get concentrated. I want to get rid of my defilements. I need to develop wisdom. And it seems that you're following the instruction, but yet not noticing that the I am, I've got, I should, I shouldn't, that's sort of crept into the picture. It's an insidious presence. And so over and over again, Ajahn Sumedho would talk about, notice those habits of the desire to become, the desire to get rid of. So going back a little bit, if you consider the Eightfold Path, Samma Sankappo, right resolution, right intention, your right thought, and right effort, Samma Vayamo, there has to be a way that the mind can resolve or set a direction, can make choices, and a way that the mind can make effort that is free of self-view. Otherwise, you couldn't have Samma Sankappo and Samma Vayamo as part of the Eightfold Path. So the fact that they're part of the Eightfold Path means that there has to be a way that direction can be given, choices can be made, and effort can be applied completely free of self-view, and which leads to the ending of dukkha instead of to more dukkha. So these are tricky areas because when investigating not self, we can maybe in meditation notice, well, there's hearing. I hear the sound of a bird or hear the sound of a car. There's just hearing. It's not a me who's hearing. Or there's a feeling in the body, or it's not my pain or my feeling of heat. It's just a feeling of heat. Aha. And those can be it's not too difficult to see those as being anatta, not self. But when it comes to decision making, it really feels like I'm deciding. I'm making a choice. I choose to change my posture. Or I choose to get up and get a drink of water. But if it's if there's a deconstructing, again using that wise reflection, it can be seen how even a decision, all the aspects of a decision are also not self. There's the perception of, say, thirstiness, and then there's a perception of that feeling, and then there's a memory of, oh, the last time that this feeling was experienced, it was relieved by drinking some water. So then the mind goes, I could drink some water, creates a thought, and then having that thought, I could drink some water, then that informs the muscles and the body to change its posture and to get up and to go to the water jug and get some water. So not to go into too much detail, but if it's explored, then even what seems like me deciding to go and get a drink, if it's deconstructed and the parts are disassembled, oh, look at that. Each part of that, perception, memory, feeling, all of those are anatta, they're not self. So you put them all together and it seems like I decided to go and get a drink of water, but when it's deconstructed, it's like, oh, look at that. Each of these pieces are also anatta along the way, but that's to be explored and to discover for ourselves. Also, with respect to effort, when the Buddha described the four samapadanas, the four right strivings, so you have the effort to restrain the unwholesome from arising. Then the second one, if the unwholesome has arisen, to let go of it. Then to consciously cultivate the wholesome, and if the wholesome has arisen, to sustain it. Samvara pahana bhavana anurakana. So again, when effort seems like I am making an effort, I'm staying with the practice, I'm working to concentrate on my breath. But again, if it's deconstructed, then that can be seen. Here's the effort to restrain the unwholesome, the effort to not let the mind go into distracted thought. And then if the thoughts have arisen, the effort to let them go, the effort to cultivate concentration, and if concentration has been established, to maintain it. So again, all of those, if they're looked at and explored, they're all anatta, they're not self. Because if they are guided by mindfulness and wisdom, then rather than by self-view, then effort is being made. Those perceptions are being used, and choices are being made, but they are not being guided by a person, by an I or a me or a mine, but it's the presence of satipanya, mindfulness and wisdom, or that vijja dhatu, the element of awareness, that is the guiding principle. So it takes a lot of work, and I really would credit Ajahn Sumedho on bringing attention to the habits of bhavatanha, vibhavatanha, really flagging those up, getting those off page 5 and page 7 of the paper, getting them on the front page to really notice those habits, and not just to let them have their effect, but to highlight those, because if they're not highlighted, they continue to have their insidious and self-creating effect. So that it's an area I talk about a lot because I feel it's so helpful. But if it's explored in meditation, then it can be realized that that the essential guiding principle is awareness, is mindfulness and wisdom. It doesn't have to be a me, the meditator, a me, the practicer, a me who's getting somewhere, or me who's not getting anywhere.
Thank you, Ajahn. Senaka, you have any comments or questions before we take the other questions that have come? There are a number of questions we have received.
Thank you, Reverend Sir. We started with the sermon for information age. It is very thoughtful of giving that type of information. Craving is the cause of suffering. You focus into 4 main areas: associate Kalyana Mitra, Dhamma Savana, Saddhamma Savana, Yoniso Manasikara, and Dhammana Dhammana Patipada. You explain all the details, these 4 areas of work. Thank you, sir.
Well, the Sapurisa Sangseva, the drawing close to good people, that is, when I emphasize this, sometimes people say, well, I'd really like to, Ajahn, but you don't know my family, or that you should come and visit my office. I'd really like to not associate with fools, but so it's sometimes we have to work with or live with or in a company of people who are unskillful or unhelpful, but it's also up to the mind how much it carries people around. So Sapurisa Sangseva, drawing close to, it's not just a physically drawing close, it's a psychological drawing close. Who do you admire? Who do you look to as a good example? And so that even if you have got people that in your life that are difficult or challenging or have unskillful habits, do you carry them around? Do you complain about them in your mind? Do you grumble about them to other people? Because that's drawing close to unhelpful people. So that it's not just a matter of who you're in the room with, but how the mind relates to others. So I would say that's part of Sapurisa Sangseva, really discerning the wholesome qualities that others have, and then seeing the benefit you get from using that, following their example, being around them, but also to drawing upon your own Sapurisa qualities, cultivating the Sapurisa Dhammas within your own heart, your own mind, so that you become a Sapurisa for others. It's not just what you get from outside, but also you can be a Sapurisa, you can be a good-hearted, well-rounded person for others. So that's part of that. Saddhamma Savana, listening, there's a bewildering array of materials, information, Dhamma talks online, and these kind of events themselves. So there's a lot of Dhamma material, but again, just to be discerning to see what really brings about a quality of peace and harmony between yourselves and others, what brings a quality of ease and satisfaction in your own heart, in your own life. To see what the results are of listening to the teaching, rather than thinking more is better. Oh, I've got so many Dhamma talks, I've got to listen to at least 3 a day, to keep up. like more is not better in that respect, but rather to really listen closely, to pay attention, to take things in, and then to cherish or to really say respect the ones that bring a genuine quality of peacefulness and ease and freedom. Then Yoniso Manasikara, it's not just a matter of thinking about things, but it's a kind, as I was describing, it's the capacity of the mind to recognize the patterns of nature, how things work in the world. So a lot of that, what makes Yoniso Manasikara function most effectively as a Dhamma practice is training the mind not to take things personally, even aspects of your own body, your own thoughts, your own personality, to see your own life in terms of natural processes rather than me and my life. One of the most recent book of Ajahn Sumedho's is called Don't Take Your Life Personally, which I've often said, I think just the title on its own is would be a perfect publication, even if all the pages were blank. Just that one, just the title of the book, Don't Take Your Life Personally. So Yoniso Manasikara, looking at your life, your physical world, your mental world, your emotional world, your social world, seeing how the patterns of your life and the world around you, how they work, how they operate, and then being guided by the way that those things operate, what leads to peacefulness, what leads to clarity, what leads to harmony, to follow those, and what leads to confusion or difficulty or distress, to leave those aside. And the fourth one, I think I just was going into in some detail with Deepal, so I take that as covered already.
Thank you, Ajahn. I'll read a few of the questions that have come. One is from Indira Fernando. It is commonly stated that for a lay person, it is one of the highest kusal to offer katina robe and undertake that organizing of the ceremony for the temple. Ajahn, is it from the sutta? How does it become one of the highest kusal? Much metta.
I believe it's from the Vinaya Pitaka in the establishment of the protocols around the katina ceremony. You get the original story. It's not in the Sutta Pitaka, but the Vinaya Pitaka, and in that I couldn't quote you the exact reference, but I believe that in that description of the establishment of the katina ceremony by the Lord Buddha, he mentions that the offering of a katina robe is the most meritorious of material offerings that can be made to a sangha. So it is from the Pali Canon, but if you look up in the Vinaya Pitaka the foundation of the katina ceremony, then you should find it there.
The next question, that's from Stalin Vettimuni. Applying Kanti at the point when Vedana arises can bring an end to the process. In short, accept the present moment as it is without any resistance, knowing that all this is subject to anicca. Kanti is the incinerator of kilesa.
Yes, I would agree. Kanti paramang tapotitika nibbanang paramang vadanti bhuta. So patient endurance is the supreme austerity. So that's in terms, again, going back to the forest tradition, that's the sort of national anthem of the forest tradition monasteries is patient endurance. When numerous times when people would come to Ajahn Chah and say, Lumpur, my mind is all over the place, I'm so restless, I'm so confused, he would say, can you endure it? So I say, Lumpur, I've had malaria for the last 8 months, it's one fever after another, it's really difficult to bear it. And he would say, Tonmai, can you endure it? And so that I think it's also important to understand that Kanti is not the English word patience implies a kind of gritting your teeth and waiting for something to be over. But Khanti is a paramita. It's a means for crossing over. It's one of the paramitas. So it's not just a gritting your teeth and waiting for the unpleasant to be over, but Khanti is the complete letting go of time. It's in a way, it's a profound insight into Akaliko, the Akaliko Dhamma, the Pachupanna Dhamma. So Khanti is not a state of waiting, so it's not really patience as we use the word in English. It's a complete letting go of the future. There is no future. So the heart is completely open. So it's a way, it refers to dealing with unpleasantness. You don't have to be patient with happy feelings, you don't have to be patient with bliss. You have to be patient with discomfort. But it's not a kind of endurance based on kind of determination alone, kind of gritting your teeth. True patience, true Khanti is not a state of waiting. It's a letting go of time. It's the present is exactly this way. And as you said, the Khanti is the incinerator of kilesas. That's the kind of core practice of the forest tradition is using patient endurance to burn up the results of unskillful attitudes. But it needs to be genuine Khanti, not just a kind of muscular pushing through, gritting your teeth and forcing yourself to endure. True Khanti, again, like with effort, there's no self involved. It's not me being patient. There's no me practicing patience. There's the heart is embodying that paramita of say complete openness to the present and not creating a future. And then even though there's still a painful feeling or painful situation, the mind is not creating any kind of alternative to that. There's no sort of false promise of, oh, soon this will be over and then everything will be all right. But rather, here it is. It's exactly like this. And there isn't a me who's waiting for it to finish.
Thank you, Ajahn. The next one is from Linda Tan. How to improve our chance to draw to good people and not encounter the wrong ones?
The Buddha talked about samagochara, right resort. So where do you choose to go? What time of day do you go there? If you go to the park in the evening when people are out drinking and playing around, then you get one kind of vibe. If you go to the park at dawn, then you get a different kind of people that are there. That in the early morning, before the party goers have got up, then you are also, as I was saying to Seneca about drawing close to good people. It's not just a matter of physically drawing close, but in terms of your attitude. If you're working in an office or in a hospital or in a college with people, and some of them are admirable and very appealing, some of them are difficult and challenging. So to be focusing on the people that you find inspiring, and helpful, and not the people who are difficult or challenging in the workplace or in the family, to not be carrying them around, because the drawing close to unskillful people can be you're drawing close to them because you're continually complaining about them in your mind. You're carrying them around and making your list of what's wrong with them, and if only they weren't like this, they shouldn't be like that, they shouldn't do this, I can't believe that he did this and she did that. So that's drawing close to unskillful people by carrying them around in our thoughts and our minds. So to consciously let go and to not carry around the the dupurisa, the unskillful people, but also to consciously you follow the example, draw close, and to value in your heart the wholesome qualities. Also, as I was saying to Seneko, we can be a sapurisa for others, so that if you look up in the Buddha's teachings, there are 7 qualities that are possessed by a sapurisa. They're called the 7 qualities of a good person or well-rounded person, and so that these are one who pays. It's essentially developing the quality of mindfulness and full awareness, sati sampajanya. So to develop the qualities of a sapurisa, you pay attention to causes, where things have come from. You pay attention to where things are going, what the likely results are. So you pay attention to causes and to effects. Then, so that's Dhammanyutta, and then Attanyutta, A-T-T-H, Attanyutta. Then Attanyutta, A-T-T, knowing your own personality, Attanyutta. Matanyutta is the 4th one, knowing the right amount in food, in activity, in conversation, and exercise, and so on. Matanyutta. Then Kalanyutta, knowing the right time, being not just being punctual, being timely, but when it's time to finish a conversation, when it's time to lend a hand, when it's time to be quiet, when it's time to speak up. So Kalanyutta is the 5th one. And then the last 2 are Pugalanyutta, knowing the person that you're talking to, knowing their character. Is it a young child that you're talking to in a classroom? Is it your grandparents that you're talking to? Is it your boss? Is it your co-worker? Who are you talking to? So knowing the character and the situation of the person that you're talking to. And then the last one, Parisanyutta, the group that you're a part of. If you're with a group, why is the group gathered? What's the group embodying? So those are the 7 qualities of a sapurisa, and those we can develop in our own lives. And so the more you develop those qualities within yourself, then the more you will draw good people to you. By you're functioning in that way, and so then people who are like-minded will draw close to you. If you're not functioning in that, if you're functioning in that way, then people who are not so good-hearted and well-rounded, they won't want to draw close to you. You're no fun. You're not interesting, or you don't want to go along to with their kind of activities, and you're not interested in the same kind of distractions. So that's, I would say, it's not just the qualities of the people around you, but also your own capacity to develop those sapurisa dhammas within yourself.
Thank you, Ajahn. This question is from Chu Vijaya Singha from Canada. How do you square up between the determination to say pass an exam and the craving to pass? Obviously, failure.
Another of the Buddha, I've covered many lists today. Another list to add to the collection is what is called the 4 bases of success, the Iddhipada. So this is for anything that we undertake. So this is a prerequisite qualities, whether it's for spiritual development, whether it's passing an exam, carrying out activities in the workplace, or even robbing a bank. You need these 4 qualities. And so the Buddha did not in any way, shape, or form say that every kind of desire is problematic. So in fact, chanda, or interest, is a sine qua non. It's a prerequisite condition. It's a necessary condition for succeeding at anything. So the first of the 4 Iddhipadas, the basis of success, are chanda, interest. You need to be interested. You need to, say, passing an exam. You need to want to pass the exam. You need to be interested to qualify. You need to want to learn the subject. So chanda. Virya, you need to apply effort. So do the work to study the subject. Chitta, you need to think about the subject and to consider how best to express yourself or what's really being asked for. And then the 4th one is vimamsa. How did it turn out? Did you pass the exam? What was the effect of your efforts and your way of working with it? So that say, the effort to pass an exam and the application of the 4 Idipada, again, that doesn't have to be based on self-view. So if I want to do the best with my life, then it'll be helpful if I pass this exam, as far as I can tell. So it doesn't have to be ego-centered. It doesn't have to be a kind of an obsession, but rather there is this potential, and for this potential to be actualized, then it'll be a good thing for this exam to be passed, so that one can relate to it in a kind of a non-personal way. Interestingly enough, when I was at university, I was deeply disappointed with the whole thing, and I wanted to bail out about halfway through my degree because it all seemed completely irrelevant and not valuable or interesting to me at all. And I very nearly I got to the door of the department secretary of the physiology department and knocked on the door to tell her I wanted to bail out, but I knocked on the door and there was no answer. So that was some interesting karmic circumstance. But anyway, I carried on with the degree. But what happened was, as long as it was for me, it was depressing and I didn't get very good marks, and the whole thing seemed completely pointless. And then in the spring holiday before my second year exams, I had a kind of change of view. I realized, well, I'm only at university because my parents wanted me to get a degree. I'm not really doing this for me in the first place. I'm actually doing it for them. So so then I thought, well, actually, it's rather like a low-paid job that I'm doing. And if I succeed in this, then my parents will be happy, and that's a good thing. So then my attitude changed, and I was doing it for my parents, not for me. And then my marks improved greatly, and I carried on and did the whole degree. So when it was for me, then it was not inspiring or pleasing at all. But when it was being done for somebody else, then the work came very kind of easily and naturally, and I ended up with a reasonable degree. So sometimes I mean, that's not necessarily a very good example, but just the example from my own life, that we can be motivated not for personal gain or personal inflation, but you can see, well, I have this capacity, and I feel it'll be a good thing if I get these qualifications, get this degree, and it's not just for me, but it's for the benefit of the family and for the world. So let that be the motivation, and then see what difference that makes when it's where the effort is not based on personal success or desire for success or fear of failure, but rather the response to the potential of the circumstance.
Thank you, Ajahn. The next one is from Shavindra Fernando. How can Saddhamma Sevana be practically implementing in society, which is a tough challenge?
Well, Saddhamma Savana, there's a great variety of Dhamma teachings that are available. You can have conversations with your friends to see what's worth listening to. What have you found beneficial? There's too much to choose from. What they call option paralysis can set in. Too many things to choose from. Talk to your friends. Talk to people that you are, say, inspired by, and say, well, what have you found helpful? What have you found beneficial? And draw upon those books or those teachings, those practices that have shown themselves to be beneficial. But I'm seeing it's just before 3 o'clock, so I think we need to wind up.
We are finished now. Udaya, are you there? I think so. Anyway, when Most Venerable Ajahn, we are very happy that not only was the Dhamma talk given, but also the many questions that were there. And we are now very close to the time, and maybe just 2-3 minutes left. So may I once again pay much respect and much merit to Most Venerable Ajahn Amaro for the very well attended. I should say that, as I said earlier, that unfortunately we could not get them on the pictures in, but they were all listening, and they've seen Venerable Ajahn Amaro and listened to the Dhamma sermon very patiently, and also with the number of questions that came, we saw that it was something that has deeply gone into them, and I'm sure that it will help them in their future of how they can overcome the craving. So before we end, may I invite Most Venerable Ajahn Amaro to pay merit to the Devas and the departed, and where we can then close up. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Annamayang Udisanadithanagatayo Banamase Imina Punya Kamena Ubajaya Kanutara Acharyo Pakara Chamata Pita Chanyataka Suryo Chanima Raja Gunawanta Narapicha Brahmamara Chahinda Chalo Kambala Chandevata Yamomita Manusa Chamajata Verika Picha Sambesata Sukhi Hondu Punyani Pakata Nime Sukhanjati Vidang Denduki Pangpape Tawo Matang Imina Punya Kamena Imina Bodhisena Chakipahang Sulabeche Watanupa Dana Chedanang Ye Sandane Ina Dhamma Yavani Banato Mamang Nasandusa Badaye Vayata Jato Pawe Pawe Uchuchitang Satipanya Saleko Viriyamina Mara Labanduno Kasanga Tunsha Viriye Sume Buddha Dipavaro Nato Dhammo Nato Varuttamo Nato Paceka Buddho Chasango Nato Taro Mamang Te Sotamanubhavena Maroka Sanglabanduma.
Sadhu, 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 sadhu. Much merit to Most Venerable Ajahn Amaro. I know it's a very tight schedule, and tomorrow is the Katina Pinkama, and once again I must pay merit and thank to Ajahn Amaro for making available this day, because I know the calendar was very tight, but fortunately for us, it coincided with the full moon Poya day, and much merit and blessings to Most Venerable Ajahn Amaro. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Goodbye.
Thank you.